Senator Sampson, good evening.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise in determined opposition to the bill that is before us, Senate Bill 503. The bill is entitled An Act Concerning Sentencing of and Parole Eligibility for Individuals whose offense was committed when such individual was under the age of 26 years. And what this bill is about changing the circumstances by which we would treat people that are between the ages of 21 and 26 years old when they've committed a serious crime. It's understood that people that are over the age of 21 are adults in our society, and yet this majority would like to change that specifically. And when I say specifically, I mean in no other case that I can think of, except for maybe getting to be on your parents' health insurance under Obamacare, do we treat people as minors all the way until the age of 26. I got to give a lot of credit to Senator Kissel and others in the room who are going to engage in this conversation about how mature someone is or what their growth of their brain and so on, but I just can't do it, frankly. Because as far as logic arguments go, there's no logic in any of that. And I don't need any science or any data to tell me that it's nonsense. And even if it isn't, it's irrelevant. Fire is hot. Ice is cold. And people that commit criminal acts should be punished. And sure, young men between the ages of 21 and 26 are probably very much more likely to commit acts of violence than other people in different age brackets. But the answer is, so what? Even if we acknowledge that it's true, are we going to dismiss it? Are we going to ignore it? Are we going to pretend that it doesn't matter? Are we going to suggest that the victims of those crimes are less relevant because of the age of the perpetrator? And that's what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to treat the victims and the victims' families of crimes differently because of the age of the person that committed them. As if that matters. 85-year-old guys in wheelchairs are not out committing murders. We don't have to go through all the reasons why that is. And it's not just because their brain is fully developed. This is just an acknowledgement that there are people that commit acts of violence in their formative years. But that doesn't mean that those crimes are any less evil or any less abhorrent or any less worthy of being treated as the crimes that they are. And that's where we're getting off track here. This bill essentially expands the early release opportunities for serious offenders, reduces the certainty of sentences, creates additional risk for the public, and as was pointed out, there's nothing in this bill about the victims or their families. Where do the families of the victims have certainty as far as a sentence? Where do victims have finality when someone is prosecuted? Or the families of victims, as was pointed out. When did they get to relax and know that justice was served? When a victim or the victim's family is in the courtroom and the sentence is delivered, are they supposed to believe that it means something? Or are they going to now assume that, well, that was the original sentence? But in Connecticut, we kind of have a two-step process where we go back later and we retry this crime in the future for the purpose of reducing that sentence. This is not about minor offenses. This is about the most serious of criminal offenses. At what age are we supposed to suggest that people should have full accountability for their criminal behavior? I've been here since 2010, and I've watched the argument progress. It seemed like folks were satisfied with age 21 instead of age 18 for a brief period of time, and now we're having another bump to 26. Why 26? Why not 27? When's that bill coming? Are you suggesting that a 25-year-old adult in Connecticut can't appreciate the difference between right and wrong? Are we undermining the authority of judges when they come up with the sentence for a crime? I live in a world where this sentence should mean what it says. It hasn't been more than a week since the last time that I stood up in the Senate chamber to make an impassioned plea for the victims of criminals. A week ago, we had a bill in this chamber that was designed to interfere with the activities of federal agents when it comes to prosecuting, apprehending criminal illegal aliens. And I went through a relatively short, abbreviated list of names and circumstances involving the victims of crimes committed by those criminal aliens. And here we are again, folks, where the majority is set to pass another law that would diminish the safety of the people of this great state of Connecticut by effectively providing protection and benefit to people who have committed some of the worst crimes imaginable. As Senator Kissel pointed out, it is not easy to end up in prison in Connecticut. We do not just take random people and throw them in prison for their first offense or for minor offenses. Frankly, you got to work up to it to end up incarcerated in Connecticut. So we're talking about a population of people that are guilty of serious crimes. I had the staff put together a list of just some examples of individuals that would have the benefit of this policy to illustrate the real life circumstances surrounding what is going on here. This is just, or rather, this is not just a logic experiment about when someone's brain reaches full attainment. This is a potential law that will change the outcome of criminal sentencing and who is on our streets and who is not. At the top of each one of these news articles, I have the name of the criminal responsible, and I am not going to use their names. I'm going to skip right over that part, and I'm going to instead mention the names of their victims. But here's a story about a 22-year-old man in New London being finally convicted for a crime he committed when he was 18 years old, where he fatally shot a gentleman by the name of Gregory Giesing and another individual named Derek Von Winkle. At the time of the shootings, our perpetrator was on probation from an arrest 2 years earlier when he was accused of stealing guns and making bombs. And the murder that he committed was a premeditated murder. And you know how we know that? Because his two victims were people he dealt drugs to, and they lived in 2 separate apartments. I won't read the whole story, but those 2 young individuals, who I believe were in their 20s, I think. Oh no, both of them were 25 at the time that their lives were snuffed out, cut short. They probably had parents, siblings. I don't know, maybe they even had children. But those people are gone. Their family members have to mourn that loss forever as a result of the actions of this 18-year-old young man. Here's another one. Nicholas John Iselli, 23, and his girlfriend, Shannon Spies. He was murdered, Nicholas was, at age 23, and his girlfriend was kidnapped by this perpetrator. She was held captive at gunpoint for more than 7 hours before authorities found her unarmed at a rest stop in New Jersey. This gentleman pleaded guilty to murder, assault in the first degree, home invasion, and so on. Another, this one is from the city of Waterbury, where this gentleman murdered both of his parents. Carlene Williams, 52, of Waterbury, and Mark Adams, 55, of Waterbury. He had, at the time, 6 pending cases at the time of his arrest and 2 prior convictions. Probably not the nicest guy around. And then, of course, there's the story that we probably are more familiar with. This one is very recent, about a situation where a young man, 23 years old, shot and killed his 4-month-old baby and the child's mother and injured a 3rd person. Ultimately, he fled to Puerto Rico, but was captured and extradited back. There's a lot more of these. I'm here swatting flies as a member of the minority, trying to be prepared for each of these bills as they come. I didn't know this bill was coming until today. Until today. So that's how much time I had to prepare for the fact that I needed to get up here and speak in opposition to this bill. And if I had a lot more time, I could prosecute quite a case, I promise you, to illustrate the pain and suffering that people in this state are ultimately going to deal with if this bill becomes law. It makes no sense. You can have fun all day discussing your logic experiment about whether person A or person B is fully developed in their mind at whatever age. But that doesn't matter. We need to have a mechanism in our society to prevent crime and to prosecute offenders. And it's just logical. Young men in their 20s are probably the most susceptible to hormones, to be aggressive. It's just a fact of life. But that does not make them any more or less responsible than anyone else. I was a 21 to 25, 26-year-old man, and I had that same aggression and that same hormone-induced manhood that made me bigger than life. I might have even jumped into Senator Kissel's tank of sharks. But I haven't murdered anyone. And if I did, I'd want to be held accountable, because that's what we do in our society. We hold people accountable for their actions. This is one of the worst bills we will see this year, Madam President. It is utterly irresponsible, and it makes no sense. I urge my colleagues to vote against it.
Thank you. Will you remark further? Senator Sampson.
Madam President, I almost forgot that I also have an amendment. So with that, the clerk is in possession of LCO number 4999. Probably should have just waited for one more to get an even 5,000, but I ask the clerk please call that amendment, and that I be given leave of the chamber to summarize it.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
LCO number 4999, Senate Amendment A.
Senator Sampson, please do summarize, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is a very straightforward amendment. Because this bill applies to a myriad of criminal activity, we thought that it made sense to try and highlight some of the crimes that are actually being considered for this policy, which would effectively excuse a portion of that behavior because of the age of the perpetrator. And I drew the amendment having to do with crimes against the elderly and children. So this amendment, very straightforward, would carve out the following crimes from eligibility under this bill to be treated as a minor despite being 26 or 21 to 26 years old. The first one, and as I list these, please consider that these are crimes under this bill which are included unless this amendment passes. Section 53A-70C, aggravated sexual assault of a minor, which is a Class A felony, and I will not get into the details of what that entails. Section 53A, 59A, assault of an elderly, blind, disabled, or pregnant person or a person with an intellectual disability in the first degree, currently a Class B felony. Section 53A, 59C, assault of a pregnant woman resulting in termination of a pregnancy. Remember what we are talking about here, folks. We're talking about serious, violent crimes that result in death and destruction. And the majority is seeing fit to at least reduce the penalty for committing them for a certain portion of this population. Section 53A-60B, assault of an elderly, blind, disabled, or pregnant person or a person with an intellectual disability in the second degree. 53A-60C, assault of an elderly, blind, disabled, or a pregnant person or a person with intellectual disability in the second degree with a firearm. 53A-83B, commercial sexual abuse of a minor. And finally, 53A-196A, employing a minor in an obscene performance. This is a very simple vote, ladies and gentlemen. If you believe that people that commit the crimes that I just mentioned should be punished the way they are today into the future and not be excused because of their age, being 21 through 26 years old, then you vote yes for the amendment. But if you believe that these folks should get a pass or have a reduced sentence because of their age, I guess you vote against the amendment. I encourage my colleagues to do what's right and vote for this amendment and bring some sanity back to this debate. Thank you.
This is not the bill. This is an amendment. This is Senate Amendment A of Senate Bill number 503. An immediate roll call vote has been ordered in the Senate for Senate Amendment A of Senate Bill number 503.
Have all the senators voted? The machine is locked. Mr. Clerk, please announce the tally.
Senate Amendment A of Senate Bill 503. Total number voting 35, total voting yea 11, total voting nay 24, absent not voting 1.
Amendment fails.
Will the clerk please announce the tally?
Senate Bill 503. Total number voting 36. Total voting yea 24, total voting nay 12, absent not voting 0.
The bill passes.